Welcome, folks, to the Three-Man Weave College Basketball Show hosted by Sportsbook Review. I'm your host for today, Matthew Cox. It is Blackout Wednesday. The day has finally arrived. That day used to mean something to me when I was like 24 and, went out and, was a younger, more immature man. And, but now we have oh, sorry, I'm getting some feedback later.
It means something more today, Matt. It means something way more today.
Matt with the feedback on our intro show for our betting.
Can everyone hear the feedback, or is it just me?
Just you, Matt.
Okay.
I mean, today we're talking opening slate of games. You can see on that side of the sidebar there, we are going down the line. Don't mind the Utah State versus Wichita State. We will be talking VCU. Don't worry. That was just obviously a late change to the bracket. We will get that figured out. But yeah, we're talking games. We're going to have some picks at the end. You can see that on the agenda as well. And if we have some picks on these bigger games, we will throw those in. We'll scatter those around. Matt, are you back?
Jim, I'm back. Yes, I have the go ahead from my command center. Sorry about that, folks. It's pretty fitting to start the 2021 season off like that, given the year that has transpired up to this point. As Jim mentioned, we're doing Bad Boy Mowers, the artist formerly known as Battle for Atlantis. We're going to do some picks on those, get to a few of the other marquee games, and then me, Kai, and Jim, best bets. So, again, make sure to subscribe and like to the channel if you like what you're hearing, and I assure you will. We have nothing but winners coming for you folks today. Let's get right into it. First game of the 4-game slate at Sioux Falls, the Pentagon. Jim, Kai, one of our favorite venues in college basketball. The opening today, St. Mary's versus Memphis. Game tips at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I think we all have a pretty strong lean on this game. The line's been bouncing up and down. It opened at 4.5. It got all the way up to 7.5, I believe, last night. And now it's starting to come back down in the direction, I believe, teaser, we agree. Jim, I'll kick it off to you to start. Why don't you let the folks know where our head's at on this one?
Well, first, this is about as big of an athletic mismatch as you could really have in terms of two high major level teams. I mean, St. Mary's still probably a top 100 team under Randy Bennett, but they are a little bit outclassed here, and they lose their two best players. Malik Fitz went pro early. Memphis brings almost everybody back. We don't count James Wiseman because he only played 3 games. But the line just got too high overnight. That 7.5 was too much for us. I'm not sure. The 6.5 is a little dicier. It's probably closer to where it belongs. But I personally lean it's still too high. Kai, are you on the same level?
Yeah, I mean, I loved it at 7.5. 6.5, I think there's still value for St. Mary's. As you said, Jim, this is, frankly, one of Randy Bennett's worst teams in probably over a decade, at least on paper. We don't know what he's going to do during the actual season. But the athleticism matchup is colossal. So if you're betting on the Gales, you're betting on Randy Bennett having a solid game plan going in against Penny Hardaway. He's going to slow this game down, whereas Memphis wants to speed it up. I trust Bennett. I trust him with my life. I love this guy. But, well, maybe not my life. I might have to double back on that one. But I do trust him to cover this spread. However, there is a chance Memphis kind of runs the doors out of off this game, especially if they start getting in transition and their athleticism, their sophomores take that leap that they definitely could.
Right, I'm with you guys. I'm on St. Mary's here. If Memphis blows them out of the water, it actually justifies what we talked about yesterday, and that we think Memphis could be a team with serious upside, a real dark horse after being overrated last year. But in this vacuum, opening game, Randy Bennett is not going to get into a track meet with the Tigers. Precisely why I actually kind of lean on the under as well. I believe there's been some steam down, dropping it to 135. So I can kind of see this game being somewhat low scoring and ugly. As beautiful as St. Mary's offense usually is, they just don't have that skill and that shooting this year to really make that come to life. So I think we're all aligned there. Shall we continue to game number 2 in the Pentagon, Western Kentucky against Northern Iowa? 2 dandy mid-majors, 2 of the best mid-majors in the country. By our ratings, by our prognoses, the line opened at Western Kentucky -2. It's now up to 2.5 at some places, according to SBR.com or the odds page. Make sure to check that out, folks. Always line shop. We will reiterate that throughout the season. We'll go up to Kai. Mr. McKeon, do you like the Hilltoppers or the Panthers in this one?
Fully healthy, I'd say I liked Northern Iowa, but Trey Burhouse hurt. That means something. He's a very good shooter for them, one of their best guards. I had this game closer to pick when he was in the lineup, but with him out of the lineup, with Charles Bassey back for Western Kentucky, I lean the Hilltoppers. It's a no-take either way for me on this game. I saw the line got up to 3, made me think about you and I a little bit more. I don't think Austin Fife is going to be able to handle Bassey inside. But Northern Iowa plays that tough Iowa basketball, that farm boy basketball, and they're definitely going to keep this one close. These are two of the best mid-majors in the country, hands down, so it's just going to be a fun game to watch.
This is another total that got steamed down, about 5 points from the opener. Yeah. Northern Iowa probably going to try to slow it down here too. More of a half-court execution team. Give the ball to A.J. Green and let him create. They've got their second best player is another all-conference guy, Austin Fife. But, I mean, Charles Bassey is like an NBA-caliber talent in the paint. So it's going to be tough to rely on him to generate double teams and draw two defenders, which is a big way that Northern Iowa scores. So I'm staying away as well. But I do think this is a little similar to St. Mary's Memphis, where
yes, exactly.
WKU's roster versus UNI's coaching advantage. I'll take Jacobson over Stansberry if I'm having to pick between those two.
Yeah, I completely agree, Jim. That's kind of where my head's at on this one. It's basically you're betting on coaching or you're betting on talent and athletes. It sounds like we lean coaching and smarts in the first one, and we're kind of torn on this one from a parallel perspective there. Let's keep on cruising through the lineup here. Game number 3, we're actually going to start with the late game, and then we'll come back to the marquee primetime matchup here. So the nighttime showdown is between Utah State and VCU. Game's tipping off at 9:30 EST. Used to be Wichita State, so if you're seeing that come across your graphic, that was a late change. Welcome to 2020. COVID will have cancellations and postponements.
As soon as they hit the tarmac in Sioux Falls, they had a positive test and were said, go right back home.
So such is life. Love the flexibility, though, for these teams to adjust their schedule on the fly. So this line opened at -4, Utah State. And now I think it's hovering around 4.5. So not a lot of movement either direction. These are two teams that are looking to replace really key pieces. VCU lost a little bit more across the board. They're going to have a very, revamped roster this year. A lot of unrecognizable faces. Utah State losing Sam Merrill, their engine, their do-everything guy on offense. It's a very much a matchup between two imbalanced rosters. Jim, why don't you tell the folks what we're talking about in terms of Utah State's big boys and VCU's guards?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Utah State might have the best front court in all of mid-major land with Justin Bean, Neemias Keita, the Portuguese protector, as we call him, nice. Big rim protector inside. But VCU, they're more perimeter-oriented, a lot of wings. Their best player is probably rising sophomore Bones Highland, just a flashing neon breakout player right there. And they might pressure Utah State, which they should, because if the Aggies get the ball inside to Bean and Keita, they could dominate. But they don't really have a point guard. Their ball handling is really shaky. And VCU could take advantage of that if they really ramp up the pressure and try to force turnovers here.
Yeah, I'm leaning VCU in this one. 4.5 is just too much for me. I'd probably have it closer to 1 or so in favor of Utah State. I love Craig Smith. He's one of my favorite coaches in all of the country, not just the mid-major world for Utah State. But I am concerned about the ball handling. Marco Anthony coming over from Virginia, presumed point guard starter for Utah State. Not exactly proven quite yet. Love the VCU guards, Bones Highland, you guys mentioned. So yeah, I'm going with VCU in this one. It's gonna be a fun game to watch. Certainly a dichotomy between both teams in terms of front court versus back court specific.
Right, and VCU is one of those teams where we might want to tread lightly, betting on a lot early in the season. Just a lot of guys stepping into new roles this season. They actually got thrust into those roles late in the year last season when they had a lot of injuries, but it might take some time for them to figure it out. Still, we're a group that bets our numbers, bets our prices, and I just think the line's too high at Utah State -4, especially with basically, as Jim mentioned and Ky discussed, a completely new backcourt there. Let's go to the headliner of the Bad Boys Mowers. We have South Dakota State playing a pseudo home game about an hour away from their locale in Brookings,
local
South
heroes.
Dakota. Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you guys are geography experts out there, which we fancy ourselves here on this podcast, you'll find that it's about a 58-minute drive just south. So if you want to allot some home court value to the Jack Bunnies, you're more than welcome to do so. I will not be. I have West Virginia as with a slight value edge here. The Mountaineers are coming into the Dakotas. They are hungry. They have two beasts up front that, in my not so humble opinion, are going to wreak havoc on the fun, gunning Barrage 3 Jack Bunnies. Kyle, kick it off to you first. What do you like in this one?
First of all, South Dakota State is a very good basketball team. So it should not come as a shock that this line is around 9.5, 10. That might seem low to those who don't really follow the mid-major world as closely maybe as others. Having said that, Oscar Tshiebwe, Derek Culver combination inside for West Virginia, that's just a little bit too much power for me for South Dakota State to overcome. Douglas Wilson is their best player. He's about a 6'7" guy who plays the 5. It's going to be a lot of shooting reliance for the Jack Bunnies here. I compare this to a game I saw against South Dakota State playing USC last year against their giant lineup. They struggled inside, but their shooting kind of kept them in it. So it's really going to hinge on that. Because of that, I lean West Virginia. It's more a certainty that Tshiebwe and Culver will dominate versus South Dakota State hitting threes.
This is another total. I feel like we're kind of beating the drum here on totals that got bet down. This is down about 5 points from where it opened. And I think that makes sense because South Dakota State's beautiful, wide-open offense is sort of predicated on Wilson, as Ky mentioned, drawing double teams, forcing 2 to play 1, getting defenses in scramble mode. When you've got Culver and Tshiebwe to guard him one-on-one, he's probably not going to be able to draw the same kind of attention, which prevents their shooters from getting open. And then West Virginia's offense just isn't very good. It's kind of a volleyball on the glass type of thing. So the total coming down makes sense. I kind of lean South Dakota State here, just a little more gut, not quite the number there for me to bet it, but I think they'll hit enough threes to stay in this one. They're a team that brings back basically everybody from last year. They know what they're doing. They have an identity figured out. Even though they are at an athletic disadvantage, I'll go against the rest of the Weavers here and lean a bit towards the Jackrabbits.
Yeah, Jim brings up a good point. If the Jackrabbits could keep them off the glass, then I think the unders are a really good bet here. But West Virginia, they overwhelm Big 12 caliber opponents on a nightly basis. So the Jackrabbits will have to put their big boy pants on to keep those two monsters up front off the boards. Fellas, let's swerve from the Midwest. Let's take a trip out east to Bubbleville, USA, the Mohegan Sun, where a ton of teams are gathering this week for just round robins. Plenty of games to be had there. A couple of marquee ones, which we'll hit on right now. We'll start off with Boston College versus Villanova. The Fighting Jay Wrights against a Boston College team that's getting a lot of buzz this year, a lot of talent. They welcome Winston Tabbs back from injury, a super electric guard that we're really high on. Again, another late game, so we're definitely catering to the West Coast, to Jim's comrades out there in the desert. 9:30 tip, Eastern time. The line got bet up to 14. I think it opened just a hair below that. Villanova favored, obviously, and I think this is a high-scoring game. I'll wait to give my probes until you guys chime in on your opinions here, but I think this is a high-scoring, up-and-down affair. Both teams can score. Nova wants to play a little faster this year. Jim, I'll start with you. Do you think Nova runs away from the Eagles, or do you think the Eagles keep it close here?
I lean towards running away, mostly because BC is really trying to still figure out that rotation. They're adding like 4 different transfers to their top 6 or 7 players, 3 of whom are grad transfers from mid-major programs. And that makes me a little nervous facing a top 5 team right to start the year. Villanova, another team that brings back a lot, kind of knows who it is. They're going to spread you out offensively, and BC they just don't really guard. They don't have the length of the athletes to match up with what Villanova wants to do offensively. So I could see this getting out of hand, especially because, as you mentioned, the pace will be up. That makes it easier to score. It kind of helps the favorite. More possessions equals more chances to outscore BC. I lean towards Villanova.
Yeah, if you're a BC backer, it's a big bet on Winston Tabbs. How effective can he be coming off injury? This is a guy who was supposed to be an all-league player, or at least a candidate for it, 2 years ago before he got hurt. Ashton Langford has a great pedigree coming over from Providence, but certainly not a proven commodity at this point. I don't think BC will be a pushover athletically or size-wise, which could keep them in the number, but overall, I just trust the continuity of Nova. They're extremely well coached. No offense to Jim Christian, but this is kind of a mismatch in terms of X's and O's in favor of Jay Wright. So I will lean also to Villanova, even though the line's getting a little bit out of my comfort zone to take the favorite.
Yeah, I have no strong lean on either side, as I teased in the intro for this game. I do like the over. This is a classic. Am I going to fall into the perils of coach speak? I've heard Jay Wright talk multiple times in multiple places that he wants to actually play a little faster this year. That has not been the case the last few seasons, so we'll see if he puts his money where his mouth is and thus puts some money in my bank account. And those of you who decide to follow me on that, total is 143, I believe, right now, according to SBR. It's the latest odds page there. Let's stay in Bubbleville. We're going to go with another kind of prolific up-and-down, helter-skelter type matchup with Arizona State versus Rhode Island. Arizona State flying across country to Connecticut here, garnering a ton of offseason buzz. The 5-star splash of Josh Christopher. They have another fringe 5-star in Marvin Bagley's little brother, Marcus Bagley. Remy Martin, an All-American candidate. A lot to like about about Arizona State's offensive firepower. But Jim, as you have alluded to so many times this offseason, with the loss of Romello White inside, they seem very frail up front. Will they guard Rhode Island at all in this game?
I don't think either team guards each other. It's going to be a shootout. Total's 151, which makes a lot of sense to me. Both teams got great point guards that can lead the way. Fats Russell versus Remy Martin. And this was supposed to be Arizona State-Baylor. Remember, that was like kind of the big marquee opening day matchup. Then we lost that because Scott Drew tested positive. There was a scramble to fill this other spot in the Empire Classic. Rhode Island stepped up to the plate, which, tip of the cap to them for taking on all comers here. But Arizona State's got the edge. They've got more of a proven backcourt with Alonzo Verge. I mean, Fats Russell's kind of like a lone wolf for that Rhode Island team, other than their transfers that are all coming in. But the number's gotten too high. I think we kind of all agree on this, that Rhode Island, just from a numerical perspective, is not 8 points worse on a neutral court than Arizona State. So we kind of lean towards the dog, despite this is going to be a run-up shootout game with a lot of scoring on both sides.
Yeah, I'm taking the dog. It's a little bit of a scary proposition because Arizona State should be one of the best offensive teams in the country this year. Rhode Island, though, they might be a little worse on defense than they were last year, losing Langevin, losing Doughton, but I still think they hold their own on that end. No one in Arizona State is stopping Fats Russell. It's very possible no one on Rhode Island is stopping Remy Martin. Certainly a fun matchup to watch. I think Rhode Island's a little bit undervalued by the market currently. They saw all those guys going out of the program, not really considering what's coming in. It is, however, kind of a wager on the new guys coming in for Rhode Island. You got the Mitchell twins from Maryland, Jalen Carey from Syracuse, Malik Martin from Charlotte. These are all good players with good pedigree, but it's still kind of a wager on them kind of meshing in this very first game.
You're right, exactly. That's the right point. Pound for pound, the talent gap here is very small. You look at Mekhi Mitchell, Jalen Carey of Syracuse. Those are two top 100 recruits or two 4-stars, depending on where you look in the recruiting rankings. You have Fats Russell, obviously, who I think can go toe-to-toe with Remy Martin with little to no drop-off. So when you're catching 8 points on a neutral, even though it's a higher-paced game that'll play to a higher number, it's probably a smaller number than it looks on the surface. I still think there's plenty of value there at +8. So it sounds like we are all aligned with that one.
Matt, all right, I just want to step in real quick. Someone in the chat mentioned Villanova first half. I kind of like that. I think
I agree with that.
That's a team that can kind of run away early and maybe hide a little bit at the first half, but then you're open to the potential of a backdoor BC cover. So if you're going Villanova there, first half is intriguing. I like that comment.
I wholeheartedly agree. All right, we're going to stretch our way out of Bubbleville, and we're going to the West Coast, San Diego, where the show has been canceled this year. One of the great student sections in all of college basketball at Vieja Center. San Diego State will be playing, I assume, without fans. I'm not sure about that, but I'm almost 100% confident.
I think that's correct.
Right. Okay. Yeah, it's a fair assumption. And they will be hosting UCLA. So now far travel for the Bruins. One of the best matchups of tonight, honestly. Again, another, I think this is a late tip. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I believe this is going to be another late game for the folks out there on the West Coast. Yep. I believe we have two resident Aztec backers with my cohorts, Ky and Jim. I'm going to ride the fence on this one. Ky, is that correct? Do I have you pegged as an Aztec rider in this one?
It's kind of one of my favorite bets of the day, to be honest. I think everyone's overrating UCLA, and I'm all here for it. I know Mick Cronin graced the cover of our pre-show thumbnail, but I like the Aztecs. It's a senior-laden team. It has NBA talent with Matt Mitchell up front, a promising high-scoring point guard in Terrell Gomez coming over from Northridge. He averaged about 20 points a game from that program last year. Certainly not a great program, that's a caveat, but a guy who can come in and score for this team, which is certainly something they need since Malachi Flynn left last year. San Diego State's deep. They're on their home floor. I know there's no fans, but it means something. And they're no stranger to big-name opponents. This is San Diego State. It's not random mid-major. So I'm backing the Aztecs +3 tonight, and I encourage all of you to do so as well.
Yep, Ky, I am on the home dog as well. It got bet up, and that surprised me a little bit. The total, on the other hand, I'm a broken record, has been bet down. And I think that makes sense. Both teams should have a better defense than offense. It just kind of just looking at the roster. Matt, you'll probably mention it. I'll let you go into more detail. But Nathan Mensah is back, the big shot blocker for San Diego State in the middle. And one thing that UCLA really thrived on last year was when they moved Chris Smith to the 4. He was kind of too versatile for most opponents to guard. But San Diego State has Matt Mitchell, and he's one of the most versatile players in the entire country. I would argue their second best player last year, behind Malachi Flynn, who ended up drafted. And I think he has a big breakout season and a little bit more of an alpha role, and he can match up with Smith. So, yeah, I like the home dog here. I think it makes sense.
So for that play to come to fruition for both of you, as Jim mentioned, Nathan Mensah is really the key. He's a big shot blocker up front for the Aztecs, had a medical condition last year. He's really the neutralizer in this matchup to basically combat all the size that UCLA will throw at you up front. If he's effective, he can give you 25 minutes out of foul trouble, look like his old self. Then, yeah, I think there's some value here on the Aztecs. Fellas, before we go to our best picks, best bets of the day, we have a lot of chatter in the comment section. Let's hit some requests from the listeners here. I'm looking at some Towson UVA inquiries. Do we have any strong leans? I think one or both of you have a Towson bet on your slate.
I'm heavy Towson there. It's going to be like a grinding physical game. 19 points is too many. I think Towson's the side there. Yeah,
Virginia could certainly blow them out. We've seen them do it. Put them in the crock pot is what we like to say. Virginia tends to do that with teams. It looks like they're not going to pull away, and then they slowly cook you for the entire game. But Towson's no pushover. This is a team that's going to compete in the Colonial. I lean Towson in this one.
Hold the phone. We just got there must be a burner account from one of your relatives. You have an MIZ play from Retro and Active. Do you guys endorse that, or are you trying to stay away from any potential trap biases here? Kai, yes or no?
Man, I'm staying away from that game. I kind of have a rule for myself. I don't bet on Mizzou because I get too emotionally invested already. And I think it's a fair line currently. It's like, 13-14 right now?
I like it at 13, but if it gets to the 13.5, that's my strike. 13 is the only place I would take it.
Matt, let's talk ETSU really quick because it went up to +8. Rumors there might be 2 starters out. Candidly, we were prepping for the show. We're not sure who those 2 starters are at the moment, but even if 2 starters are out, for me, that's a ridiculous line. I have to take the wager on ETSU, even though they have so many unknowns with a brand new coach, sort of a brand new roster as well.
Yeah,
agreed there.
Completely agree as well. I honestly, all 5 starters could be out. ETSU's 6th through 10th players can play close against a very good Abilene Christian team. Don't get me wrong, extremely well coached. Peyton Hicks is a super underrated player in that league. He's gone. I'm sorry, Hank is gone. Yep. Oh, well, then boom. That's why you should bet him even more. The point being, this line is ridiculously too high, even with that news. Another fishy line that's climbing is Colorado, South Dakota. I think there may be value there unless something drops, so keep an eye on those 2 games as well. Now, let's get to the sweet spot here of our show, our best bets. Jim, Kai, I think I'm going to flip a coin here to see who goes first.
Well, you're going first. You're on top.
All right, fine. I will start us off then. I was very indecisive as I looked at the slate. A lot of juicy plays to select from. I actually will say that VCU and Rhode Island are 2 of my favorite plays of the day. We already covered those in the meat of this show. So I'll go off the beaten path a little bit with Oakland, which I believe is sitting at +16 as I look at the updated SBR odds board. It's dropped a ton, and rightfully so. The opening line of 20-21, wherever you looked, was ridiculous and just downright disrespectful to Greg Campy and the boys there up in Michigan. But even at this price, you've lost 4 points of value. I still think this is a great bet. Xavier's installing a new offense this year. Travis Steele's trying to kind of reinvent what they do. They lose a lot. They're relying on some young backcourt pieces. Some very good backcourt pieces. Kiki Tandy, but we call him Kai because he's Kai's long-lost brother, or so we think. And Oakland has some talent this year. I think Campy's, restocked the cupboard there, and I think this is a great play. It should be pretty up and down as well, so the over has some value.
Yep.
Jim, what do you thoughts on my best bet there?
To me, I've lost the value. I loved it at the opening price, but I really like the over. Oakland's going to play a lot faster this year. Greg Campy was mad he didn't have a point guard last year, and now he's got kind of a well-stocked backcourt. He's going to run. He's going to run this year.
Yeah, I echo Jim. I like the over. I watched the opener on this game, slid in there, but at 16, can't do it.
Yeah, mad was an understatement. Watching Greg Campy's pressers last season, he was he needed a hug. I just felt bad for him. He had no one to handle the ball for him. Kai, I'm going to put you up first here for your best bet of the.
We're going in order. It's my turn.
Sorry, I'm looking.
There's an agenda, my guy.
Read the script.
I don't like.
Matt, you're usually so good with
well, on the
prompter,
podcast I do. I'm trying to go off the cuff here on this on the SBR show, so it's not really working out very well for me, especially after the feedback debacle at the start. But thank you for picking me up. We are a team here.
That's right.
Jim, over to you for your best bet.
Matt, I'm going towards your alma mater here, the Hoosiers of Indiana. Open -21. It's been bet up just a little bit to 22, but I think they're in just a completely different league than Tennessee Tech, who is a bottom tier OVC team. They do have some experience in the backcourt. J.R. Clay is a pretty solid point guard, but their offense was abominable last year. 343rd in the country at KenPom, I believe. And Indiana is a great defensive team. Say what you want about some of their offensive foibles in past seasons, but they can guard. And Tennessee Tech has nobody to put on Trace Jackson Davis. They've basically got one big guy in their rotation. And if he gets in any foul trouble or has to go to the bench, TJD is going to go nuts. So I like Indiana. I think they win by 30.
Yeah,
I would agree with you, Jim.
Bloodbath.
Kai agrees. Well, that's a consensus play. There you go. We're currently discontinuing our consensus plays on Twitter. So for those who just tuned in, you stumbled upon one. You're welcome. Take that to the bank. I don't subscribe to the "Don't Bet Your Alma Mater" like my colleague Kai. I am also on the Hoosiers. So, Mr. McKeon, what is your best bet of the night?
Guys, we're going off the beaten path here. We're going to the Big Sky. Idaho State, 12, 12.5, plus 12, plus 12.5, playing Santa Clara. I know, Idaho State, not a very good team from a national perspective, but they are much better than they were last year. Ryan Looney is in his second season there. Fantastic coach for my money. He brought in just a slew of JUCO guys last year and really did something with that team, at least better than expectations. Certainly wasn't very good still, but better than everyone expected. Their three best players return, Tarek Cool, Porter, Smelly, and they add a guy in Braden Parker, a big guy who had to sit last year with injury, who Looney thinks is going to be a fulcrum in their offense this year. So I'm pretty high on Idaho State, relatively speaking. And frankly, I'm just a little bit lower on Santa Clara than the market is. They lose Trey Wirtz. They lose Taj Edey. So I'm pretty comfortable they're not going to run the score up, even though I do respect Herb Sendek, and he certainly has some pieces returning on that team.
Yeah, Sendek has played slow almost most of his career, and he sped things up last year, but he loses his backcourt. And without his starting backcourt, they're going to be more big man oriented, play towards that front court. I think they slow back down more towards the Sendek system of years past. And that helps the dog, to be honest, right there. And I don't buy that Santa Clara is 107th in the preseason KenPom ratings. I have them nowhere near that. So, yeah, I'm an Idaho State guy too, Kai.
All right, Bengals.
Rawr. Yeah, excellent point, Jim, on the roster reconstruction. I think Santa Clara is, two of the best players are actually big guys this year. So it would be smart of Herb Sendek to kind of revert back to his old ways with the tempo there. That plays well for the dog, as Kai mentioned, Idaho State. I will co-sign that pick. We have some comments coming through here. We have a few minutes before we sign off. Any quick hitter thoughts on a few of the ones that we are getting inquiries about, specifically Georgia State, Georgia Tech? Jim, I'll start with you. Any hard lean there?
I lean towards Georgia State and where it's gotten. It started at 6. I think it's up to 8 last I checked. And I kind of like the dog there. Although Georgia Tech can handle some of their pressure with maybe their best backcourt in years, I just think Georgia State can hit enough threes. They're frisky. They were really well coached last year, impressively so. So I would go Georgia State at that current price.
Yeah, at that line, it's Georgia State lean for me as well. I'm high on both teams this year. I think both teams outperform expectations, but Georgia State might be the best team in the Sun Belt. I think they keep this one close, and especially they're both in Atlanta. There's not a lot of travel involved in this one.
I will stay away and defer the listeners to Kai and Jim's take there. I have no hard lean on that. I see we are at time. Let's wrap this show up. Thank you all for tuning in to our first official Day of Slate show after the Futures special editions on Monday, Tuesday. We'll be coming at you Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Eastern. For the rest of the year, that includes tomorrow on Turkey Day. That includes Friday. So
no days off.
No days off in this podcast. I mean, you guys
except
will be
the
gathered,
weekends.
Except the weekends. Right, we get those off occasionally. Again, if you want to see more content, please visit sbrpicks.com. Click the links in the description, subscribe, like, all that good stuff. And we'll be back same time tomorrow, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Take care.